Welcome to the PDX files. Each week we dive into the weird and the unexplained here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. My name is Peej.
And I'm Mac.
Mac, what are we talking about today?
We're going overseas. We're going to talk about some interesting, we have some urban legends in the U.S. that we all know about. Some of them have been turned into movies, but I don't know much about urban legends in other countries. And we're going to go to a special friend in Britain.
All right, here we go.
Scary British urban legends. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the corpse train. Now, according to London folklore, in the early 1900s, there was a train that ran underneath the city and it was only for dead people. Back then, London's hospitals and morgues were struggling to deal with the vast amount of people that were dying from poverty and disease. They decided to transport the bodies out of the city, but knew that they couldn't do it overground without disturbing a lot of people. So, they used an existing train line to load the bodies onto. The train ran just the other side of a wall from the normal daily service, where unsuspecting Londoners were getting on and off their trains unaware of the nearby bodies.
That's creepy.
That's fucked up. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a very, very good way to begin the whole urban legend thing. I mean, we don't have a lot of that kind of stuff, like a fucking corpse train. That's amazing. And also, it seems kind of, sort of like viable. Like, yeah, let's not like run them over the overground. He said the underground is not do the overground. Let's just sort of do it on the down low, and then
DL.
you have to see it, right? They're gonna slide into your DMs with the DL.
Hey, I mean, I guess people back then had to do what they had to do. I mean, the conditions back then just were not optimal for that level or that volume rather of death, right? So,
Absolutely,
but
yeah. It seems scary, but I mean, it kind of makes like some sense. I don't know how to describe it, but like I wouldn't be surprised if some of that stuff happened here in the US, except that we didn't have the underground tubes until much later on. But it's like, yeah, all right, I get it. But it is an urban legend. It's not like actually
yeah,
100% approved yet.
yeah. But the
So
fact that the I don't know, the mechanisms are exist, right? The tube.
they had the infrastructure to do that shit.
Right.
Absolutely, they did.
All right,
Yes.
here we go.
Next up at number 9 now, we have the suicide pool. This one comes from Epping Forest near Essex. The story goes that years ago, a young couple in love were followed to a pond in the forest by the girl's father. When the couple finally embraced, the father leapt from the trees to confront the boy. The fight got out of hand and the father ended up killing the boy in a rage at the edge of the pool. The waters then turned black. Wildlife that was touching the water died instantly. In the years that followed, bodies started to appear in the water. First it was an old woman, then a young one with her young child beside her. They say the pool drew them into their death, and that the pool is still out there in the forest somewhere, waiting for its next victim.
I mean, that sounds like Lord of the Rings kind of shit. Like you're killing elves and men, and they're like in the whole swamp thing. But I don't know. I feel like that probably has a real, like somebody found a body in that area. Like it feels like that probably had some real version of that happening. Whether or not it's a pool that has bodies coming up, probably not. But probably there there might have been like a suicide sort of happening there. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with a fact, and then it kind of then becomes something that people tell over time, and then it becomes scarier, and it becomes weirder and creepier, and that's why all of a sudden it's the suicide pool.
Well, like in Japan, did they have that particular park where
There-
certain people
There's a
go? And, like,
there's a
yeah,
forest, that's the suicide forest in Japan, and that one guy got in trouble because well, he was, he's an asshole.
he found somebody who was dead, or yeah. But it's not like there's like hundreds of bodies in the forest area. They probably removed them, but maybe there was like something left over behind that makes it a bit more creepy. But certainly this one I would not want to go to that area, because again, I think there's a grain of truth to it.
Yeah.
It looks like the type of an area that, and again, urban legends sort of develop over time and sort of create this kind of uh, this idea that, oh, this is cool, right? So
Right.
we're going to do it here. We're going to do that there, rather
Right.
than just do it in your own miserable hotel room in London or something like that.
Right. Be more dramatic. All right.
Exactly.
All right. Here we go.
Next up at number 8 now, we have Annie. This one comes from Edinburgh, Scotland. In the old town there lies a
I
street
love
known
that
as
town.
Mary King's Close. It's steeped in myths and legends of hauntings and murders. In 1990, a psychic called Aiko Gibo visited and felt a small hand touch hers. She said that she then made contact with the spirit of a dead child called Annie, who had died in a plague hundreds of years ago and had lost her doll. The psychic then went to a nearby shop and brought back a Barbie doll for her. Now since then, visitors leave dolls for Annie, and a mountain of them has built up in the dark.
I don't know.
That is fucked up. Did the psychic actually manage that, or was that just like some crazy shit? I'm sure they're not making any money off of all the, but I mean, you can imagine owning that property and it's like 1,000, there was like 1,500 Barbies.
That
Like,
would
what do you do with that shit?
That would creep me out.
Fuck yeah, that is not normal. Let's just say that.
But it's
whether or not that's possible, that's an actual thing that happened there, maybe. But who has to clean that shit up? That's what.
well, yeah, I know. And gosh, and then what kind of spirits that would stir, right? I mean, it's a good urban legend because it's kind of steeped in, again, in like that mysterious, potentially mysterious death, and then you've got an what is it, a restless spirit that needs to be mollified somehow. And if
Feed
it's
me.
What was that? What did you
Feed me.
Yeah, feed me. All right, cool. Let's go to the next here.
Faceless Woman. This one comes from the borough of Barking in London. There you can find Beacon Tree Station, home to the Faceless Woman. The most famous sighting of her happened in 1992. A station supervisor reported that on one night he heard the handle of his office door rattle. Outside on the platform stood a woman. She had blonde hair, she wore a very pale dress and just stared into the distance. The supervisor approached her, but as he reached out, she turned to him only to reveal she had no face. Just darkness where there should be one. Local ghost hunters claim that she is the victim of a train crash that happened there in 1958, which killed 10 people.
Jesus, wow. I mean, these are pretty impressive. Like, very, very creepy. Like, if I could just imagine working on that particular line. It's like, I say it was the Max line here in Portland, Oregon, and someone knocks on the door. It looks like a chick, and I come outside and like, oh, and then like it's like a faceless woman. Like, oh my god, you definitely got hit by the Max. It sort of depends on the speed of the Max, just whether or not they have a face. And our Max doesn't go that fast, but maybe they do a bit more faster in England. Man, I wouldn't want to see that. That'd be pretty fucked up.
And there's similar stories. There's I don't know if they're urban legends or like scary stories in Japan. Because again, Japan is a very train dependent country of spirits that hang out at train stations. I do. Now, this is making me think about the killings that happened in the Max and at the Hollywood district. When was that? That was pre-pandemic, right?
I think it was around the pandemic. Honestly, it was like 2019 ish. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago, and it would be so freaking creepy if all of a sudden, I'd see those spirits, because there were two people who died who were murdered by that guy, and so because there would be restless spirits over there, right? Because it was stopped at the 42nd Hollywood station there, and I don't know. I think it's kind of plausible because especially if it's a death that was violent and it was sudden, that could
leave that
mark, that energy, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. 100%.
which killed 10 people. At number 6 now, we have The Beast. England's Hackney Marshes is known for its sprawling woodland and boggy reed marshes often covered in swirling fog, the perfect setting for this urban legend. The story goes that in 1980, 2 bear carcasses were found in the river. They had been decapitated. People started speculating about who or what could cut a bear's head clean off its shoulders. Then, a year later, 4 boys were taking a walk along the marsh one winter morning when they saw it through the trees. They described it as a giant, great, growling, hairy thing. As soon as it saw them, it reared up on its back legs and let out a deafening roar. The boys ran, but the story remains always in the back of people's minds as they trudged through the marsh.
So that's kind of like a little bit of the Nessie legend there a bit, but also the Yeti. So there's like a sort of combination between the two a little bit. It's like, how could these bears have been decapitated? I mean, that's weird. It was probably some assholes who like poisoned the bears, and then because again, you get a lot of that here in the US. So like they don't like go right after bears, which I get that. Believe me, I'm not going to go right after a bear either. But it's like there's a lot of poisoning of bears and hunting that's been outlawed and sort of gone back and forth on. And then all of a sudden, you've got this other factor to it. It's like, it feels like that's more human generated, but also it's like, God, why would you want to run across that? That's awful.
All right, let's continue here.
We're returning now to the London Underground for our number 5 with The Crying Girl. On November 18th, 1987, a match was dropped on an escalator at London's King Cross station. A fire quickly spread into the nearby ticket office, which resulted in the death of 30 more people. In the years since then, passengers have reported seeing a girl who died around the station. She has long brown hair, wears jeans and a t-shirt, and is always crying. Some people have even reported hearing her sobs while smelling smoke coming out from the escalators.
So that one, I can't remember if residual hauntings have the kind of attack the senses, or it's just like you're sort of looking at like a video happening over and over again. But that feels more like a residual haunting that could be real. Like it could be a gal died, and I mean that looks horrible what happened there, and certainly could be still hanging around. What's your take on that one?
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a residual haunting, and and those kinds of hauntings are not just visual, are not always just visual. It could also be, multi-sensory. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the smell of smoke. I mean, part of it also, it would be whether the people are conscious of it or not when they're in that area. And by conscious and like conscious of the history, some of that could also be like just a psychosomatic type of thing, you know what I mean? Like, I all of a sudden I smell smoke in this area that once was, destroyed in a fire. I don't know. I think that's also kind of like the mind playing tricks on people.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. But I mean, I think there's not a lot of, I mean, in my mind, anyway, there's not a lot of doubt in my mind that there are residual hauntings. And that makes a lot of sense. And so I feel like that it could be one of those areas where it could be one of those situations happening where it's just like that was so traumatic that happened. And it happens. It's like all the time, right? If you go through the area, like, 88 times or 90 times out of 100, you're not going to notice anything. But those other 10 times, maybe you do.
Yeah, I think residual hauntings are fascinating because, again, it's often because of something tragic, right? And that it imprints in that space, it imprints in that area, the negative energy, right? That remains there, and it could manifest in a replaying, like you said, of the happening there. But if this is a crying girl, I mean, was she?
Who knows, right?
Was she crying when she was burning? I mean, I think that's where I was a little. That's where it maybe turns into not. It turns into not a residual haunting, and it's more of an intelligent haunting in that sense.
That's possible. That's definitely possible. I mean, it could have been somebody trying to get home, and like it's like, hey, I'm stuck in this now. Like I can't escape this, right? And I'm gonna make my peace with it somehow at some point. But just hasn't. I mean, it's only was it say 87? I mean, that's not even that long ago. What do you look at it? So
Yeah. Well, jeans and a t-shirt. It's not any. It's not like 19. It's not like in the 1800s. You know what I mean?
it's not even the 1930s. Like, yeah, see, okay, I'm gonna stop.
All right, here we go.
Back to Scotland now for our number 4 with Sawney Bean. This is the gruesome tale of Alexander Sawney Bean, a man who was said to be the head of a Scottish clan of cannibals in medieval times.
Yeah.
According to legend, the group was made up of his wife, their 14 children and 32 grandchildren, some of whom were born
Jesus
Christ. They lived in
Christ.
a cave by the water and would ambush people on the road at night. They would bring their bodies back to the cave to then dismember and eat them. Any leftovers were pickled in a jar for later. When King James VI of Scotland eventually heard of these murders, he led a manhunt to capture them. The clan was caught and then executed. Some people say you can still find the cave along the Benane Head area of Scotland.
I mean, that is pretty fucked.
First of all,
That's the most fucked up one so far.
I mean, was it 31 grandchildren?
He had I think he said he had 14 kids and like 32 grandchildren, which is by itself like sounds terrible. I mean, it sounds awful. But I mean, I can see why. Maybe if you look at it from a certain sort of perspective, it's like they don't have any resources,
Right.
and we got to trap people and we got to eat them. We got to get the job done. You know.
My God.
Yeah.
But and do you notice that the part of the lore is that some of the grandchildren or some of the children and grandchildren were via incest.
Well, I'm not surprised by that.
So
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like that kind of led itself to the U.S. in certain ways, but yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know if it was like as extreme as the urban legend made out, but I can see that maybe happening.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Moving on to number 3 now, we have Cane Hill. Some say this is one of the most haunted places in England. It was a mental asylum for over 100 years, from 1882 to 1991. It built up a reputation for abandoning some of its patients, hiding them away from the public eye, and never truly helping them. Some people say the patients who died left their energy behind there because of their tortured lives. The building was gutted by a mysterious fire in 2010. Perhaps the scariest stories of all are of the faces appearing by the burnt out windows.
That's
so he just described a residual haunting, essentially. It's like they left their energy there, is what he said, right?
Yeah, they left their energy there, but
it could be a combo pack, though.
I think it's combo. I mean, like faces in the windows. Although, if this was a mental institution, I believe that's what he said, right?
Yeah.
There's obviously those mental people were sorry, when the mental patients were still alive, they might be looking out windows, so that could be like a residual haunting kind of situation there. Yes,
they could be. I mean, I don't know. I think mental institutions, prisons, and things of that nature are breeding grounds, certainly for either residual hauntings or those who can't move beyond that. I think it could be both.
Yeah.
Certainly. So urban legend like that, it doesn't really surprise me.
It's tough. It's tough not to imagine that kind of possibility in an old mental institution for sure. Cane Hill. All right, here we go.
Next up at number 2 now, we have the House of the Screaming Skull. This one comes from Bettiscombe Manor in Dorset, England. The legend goes that in 1830, a man lived there called John Frederick Pinney. He had a slave that he had brought back from the Caribbean island of Nevis. The man became ill, and on his deathbed, he swore he would never rest unless his body was returned home to Nevis. Pinney refused to pay for that expense, and when he died, he had the man buried in the local graveyard. After that, ill fortune began to plague the village for months. Screams and cries were heard from the cemetery. At the manor house, windows rattled and doors kept slamming. The body was dug up and brought to the manor house, where today only the skull remains, where it's said to haunt the manor, but the village remains safe.
Why would you dig up that guy and bring him back to the house? Send him back home.
Yeah, for the solution, let's bring it back to the house.
Oh my God. Yeah. So if that was actually real, that's the dumbest decision of all time, to bring the body back and just like leave it there. It's like, hey, just maybe take me home. He's like, okay, I can't do it. I don't have the money. Okay, fine. Maybe put that into the plan later on, because he laid a curse on the place. One, back in those days, if someone told me they laid a curse on the place, like, I'm gonna get that shit out of here as soon as I can.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you really don't know. And then they brought him inside the house, and it's just the skull. That does not seem like a good idea.
I would also just warn our audience and our listeners that when if there is something that's cursed, and you take it out of the house, the last thing you want to do is burn it. By the way, that's
Yes.
the last thing you want to do. Um,
Yes.
it should, and
It's not going anywhere. It's still there.
yeah. So,
God damn it.
all right, here we go.
And finally, number 1 now, we have the Hell Hounds. Dartmoor is a vast, rocky, windy and mysterious part of England. It's popular among tourists, but everyone who goes there is aware of the legend of the Hell Hounds. It's said that a pack of these ghost dogs wanders the moors at night, preying on sheep, and they're not afraid of humans. They've often been described as cat-like, but with the frame of a bear, and very fast. There have been pictures and film taken of them over the years that claim to show glimpses of these Hell Hounds in action. Many of the locals don't even need that though. They've heard the stories handed down from generation to generation. Some of them even say they've seen the hounds with their own 2 eyes.
I don't know about that one. It seems like there's a bunch of like random dogs out there probably, and that's the of all the stories there, that seems like the most least likely of all of them. But you just never know. But I feel like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. It's like if you look at England, it's like and Great Britain and all that, it's not that much bigger than where we live in Oregon, and so you can imagine the number of stories that are so close together that we don't see necessarily. I mean, maybe we do have that. We should ask more local yokels and find out kind of what their thoughts are on this. But it's amazing, kind of the stuff that comes up there.
Well, especially when you're talking about vast open land, right? And the way, I mean, it looked pretty craggly, so very rocky, and hilly and all of that, and the way wind would meander through a terrain like that could potentially cause a howling sound.
Yeah,
Could
totally.
potentially cause, sounds that could be mistaken for, whatever hellhounds or whatnot. And obviously it would be interesting to find out if this was like, some parents from way back when telling the kids not to go out. And if you do go out, you might be fall
Urban legends. Yep.
to the
Yep.
hellhounds and stuff like that. Well, obviously that's how urban legends are made. But yeah, UK, we got representation from the UK this time around. And
Hell yeah.
and yeah, because I mean it's such a small area that you these kinds of stories get concentrated, right? And then they proliferate a lot faster, maybe, and becomes more ingrained into to the psyche. Whereas here in the U.S. and even in our own state of Oregon, I mean, there's so much space, that it'd be interesting to find out. Well, like you said, when if we start poking around, what other urban legends might exist here in Oregon. All right. Well,
Indeed.
if you enjoy this content, please give it a like and share it across your socials to help get the word out about our show. If you hadn't already done so, please subscribe. And on YouTube, hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.